Hello and welcome to chapter 1 or module 1, I should say, of Accounting 1097. So today it's really just about getting started with Excel. Some of this information you may know. If you've ever used Excel, you probably know most of module 1. But if you've never used Excel, hopefully you find this module 1 helpful just to give you some general navigation, some of the basic formulas, etc. So what we're going to do today is walk through the textbook. So we're going to start with Excel module 1 from the text. And in order to do this, we will need some start files. So on our course site, again, we'll go to content. We'll go to textbook start files, and we're doing module 1. And the one that we will walk through today will be the modular exercise. I will download that and open. All right, so this is the file, and you see it's very basic. Not a very pretty Excel. So we're going to walk through, first of all, where to find things, then we're going to manipulate this data. So I'm going to hit enable editing first in order to allow me to make changes to this file. All right, so a few things to show. Are, where do you find things? You'll notice, first of all, up on the left-hand side here, this always indicates the name or the address of the active cell. The active cell is where if you started to type or paste something is where the data would go. So if you take your mouse and say clicked on A1, it'll say A1. Say let's click on this word average, it'll tell me that that cell is called H5. Later on, we'll talk about how to name cells, but right now it's a intersection point of the column and the row of where you've identified. And it always has this little green box around it. For example, if you hit B4 to B11, so we've highlighted what we call a series or a group of cells, okay, also known as a range. Well, this is a helpful function because sometimes if you want to apply, the same formatting in the future to a bunch of cells, you can highlight a whole bunch. You can also click, say, on C4, hold the control button, maybe hit B6, maybe hit, B9 using the control button. Then those 3 cells become my active cells, and any formatting or changes I make apply to all 3. Okay, so there are different ways to add active cells together. As far as general screen navigation, up at the top, you'll have an autosave button. So if you have your OneDrive set up or whatever, you can have that functionality built in. Okay, your ribbon is what we call this section, ribbon. And it's based on what tab here. So this is my home ribbon, my insert ribbon, page layout ribbon. So you'll hear me reference that throughout the course. Okay, and we're going to walk through each of these tabs, not the QuickBooks one, that's for something else. Up here, you've got a search button. So if you ever want to, quickly search for something, that's helpful. Okay, so keep an eye on that. This area down here is what we call the worksheet window. Okay, and then on the bottom left-hand side, there are a few things I want to point out. One is you'll have what we call sheets or worksheets. And in this file, we only have one worksheet called sheet 1. And you'll see a little plus. So if I wanted to add other tabs or other worksheets for other purposes, I can hit the plus number, or I can group them all together and delete them. This item down here is called the status bar. We will use it for various purposes later on or throughout the course, but this status bar has information such as the file ready to take input, is a macro recording or not, which again, we'll do in a later module. Are there accessibility recommendations? Because it's a function set up on my computer to check for accessibility. So how readable is it? Let's go way over to the far right first. We'll have a zoom function. Okay, so you can zoom in, zoom out, or you can also use your control and scroll on your mouse. And then these views, we've got our page break preview shortcut button. We've got our page layout view, and we've got a normal view. And again, we'll use them through other modules. The other function that I find very helpful in Excel, I use this regularly in my job, is say if you wanted just quick and dirty, what's the average of these, but you don't want to type in a formula because maybe you only need it one time, you can highlight those cells. Look at the bottom, Excel says, okay, here's the average, 120.5. Here's the count, how many numbers are there, 8, and the total, 964. just some quick data points that you may need, but without typing a formula. All right, so let's do some data entry. Let's go to F3. And we want to add a new column. We're going to call it total. So we can just type. You might just click on there and start typing, or say you clicked in here, you could also click in what's called the cell contents here and type total. I would say, to be honest, just click and start typing, and it will enter accordingly. Once you're done typing, okay, you have a couple options. You can hit the enter button, which will take you to the next cell, or you can click this little check mark button on the cell cell contents row. So you got the little check box that says enter, and that'll keep you in that active cell. Either way works. Let's go to A12. We're going to add Vancouver. And we're going to hit the tab button. Tab button takes you across your sheet. Enter button takes you down the sheet. Okay, just to give you those. And while we're in B12, we're going to type 120, 130, 117, and 130 across the 4 rows. And then we're going to go up to B3. And we're going to delete that because we want to call it something else. So I just hit the delete button on the keyboard. I'm going to click on C3. And I want to highlight all 3. So I'm going to click on C3, highlight C, D, and E using my mouse, and delete. So you can delete single, you can delete a bunch. Again, hopefully this makes sense. B3, we're going to call that Q1. And with that still being the active cell, we're going to do what's called autofill. So autofill is a function that Excel begins to recognize patterns, and it uses either patterns or lists that are built in. So for example, if you have numbers and you put 1, 2, 3, and then autofilled after that, it knows you're counting by 1, it would go 4, 5, 6. In this case, we have Q1. If you go to the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see your mouse changes to a black plus symbol. We'll click and hold there, drag it to the right, and you'll see that it counts up by 1 because it thinks, that's what I think you want. You can always change it. Okay, do you want to fill the series, fill without formatting, or just copy the content? Okay. That's this little autofill option box. So again, autofill can be very helpful, and we'll use it often in this course. All right. Just double checking we're up to speed. We're on page 1-4 and 1-5 of the textbook if you are following along. One thing that you'll find is if you have the textbook, there's little orange or yellowy orange boxes that have extra tips. We'll cover some of it through the course, but you might find additional information that'll be helpful for SAM, et cetera. Okay. Turning over to page EX1-6, we're now going to edit data. How can we edit data? So let's go to B4. And it says click to the left of B4 in the formula bar. So here's our formula bar. We're going to click to the left of the 4. Okay. We're going to type delete. So we're going to get rid of the 4 and change it to 3. Okay, so we've now edited contents. Another way I'll say easier in life is I would just double click on the cell close to where you want to edit and then just make the change in the cell. But again, you can do it multiple ways. Let's go to B6 and we want to edit the Chicago information. Another way is if you're in a cell and you want to edit that cell and you don't want to have to click in the formula bar, if you have the function button options, F2 puts you in edit mode. So F2 edits the current cell. And in this case, we'll hit backspace and we'll change it to 109 instead. So again, F2 I use often, or double click with a mouse. Those are probably the 2 ways. I hardly ever go into the formula bar unless I really have to. Let's go over to H6. And we want to click on the word max in the formula bar. So up here, and we'll put maximum. Okay. And we want to do the same with minimum. Yeah, we can click in here. Minimum. Can't spell that word. So again, click on the cell or click on the formula bar to edit. All right. We're going to continue over to page 1-8. So how to copy and move data around. So let's go to F3. So we've got our total button and we want to copy that. So there are a couple of ways. Up on your home tab of your ribbon, you'll see copy in this far left-hand side. You might be able to, right click on it and hit copy. Or if you know your shortcuts, Control-C also copies. When you're starting to copy, the cell that you're going to copy from will have a train running around it in green. Okay. So we've now copied it. Let's hit the dialog box launcher in the clipboard group. So whenever we talk about a dialog box launcher, it's this little arrow in the group that we're talking about. So clipboard, this little arrow. And this gives you the clipboard, various items that you have copied, ready to paste. Okay. Helpful sometimes if, say, you're copying and pasting all kinds of stuff, you'll see your history in here as far as what you've been doing. I hardly ever use it personally. Let's go down to A13, and we're going to hit paste. So you can either hit the paste button here, you can hit Control-V, you can right-click and paste. Okay, lots of different options. I'm just going to paste it that way. Okay, if you're not sure how you want to paste, if you hit the little drop down, you'll see all your different paste options. So say we wanted to paste everything, it's this first one, which is that master button. But say we just wanted the values, not the format, or maybe you want values and number formatting. Maybe you just want a formula copied. Okay, maybe you want everything but the borders. Okay, so there are different options. You want to paste it as a picture instead. Okay, the different options. Let's close the clipboard. And let's go to H5 to H7. And we want to move it. So say I now want this down below my chart. I can highlight all 3 cells, go to the outside outside of the border until it turns into a 4-way plus. It can be any border, just not a corner. Actually, it will work on a corner. Sometimes this one won't because it thinks you're autofill. Okay, but the other corners will. So go to any edge where it changes to the 4 pointers, and we're going to drag that down to A15 and then let go. So I use the left mouse, hold it, and drag and move. And now we've moved it accordingly. Okay. Let's move on to page 1-10. So let's go to cell F4. And now we want to enter some formulas. So whenever you're using a formula, you want to start with an equals button. This is telling Excel that you're going to type a command or something for Excel to perform. So in this case, you can type or you can click. I always encourage you to use your mouse. So in this case, we want to go B equals B4. And we're going to do it the long way right now. We're going to hit plus C4 plus, click on D4 plus E4. You can see how this could take a very long time if, say, we had a whole bunch of columns. Okay. But what we're going to do is use the sum function instead in a different spot. So let's use that formula. So I hit enter. Let's go down to the total of Q1. So into cell B13. And we're going to use the sum function. So there's a couple of ways you can equal sum. Okay. But I will say up on your home bar of your ribbon, near the far right-hand side under editing is auto sum. If I click that, Excel will automatically think, I think they want to add rows 4 to 12 in this column, which is what we do want to do. So I'll accept that. Okay. Some of the arithmetic operators, again, especially if you haven't used Excel or Google Sheets before, obviously the plus symbol is to add, the minus symbol on the keyboard, which is beside the plus. So you got the backspace, the plus, then the minus beside it, is to subtract. Asterisk or Shift 8 is your multiplication, and your upward slash, which is your right hand shift, the button beside it, is your upward slash, is your division. Just want to point that out. All right, so now we're going to copy formulas with relative cell references. So relative means wherever I move the formula to, based on the original location of what it is adding, keep that relative location to where I'm putting the formula. So let's do an example. F4, if you look, it's adding the 4 columns to the left of it, all on row 4. Okay, so let's use the fill handle. So fill handle is this bottom right-hand solid black plus symbol. So if I go to the right-hand bottom, that's our autofill handle. I'm going to double click on that, and that'll drag it down to the bottom of my data. If it didn't work, that's probably because you had a blank row somewhere. So the other option is you can single click, hold, and drag down. Okay. Questions on, or sorry, I guess I can't ask questions. You're not live. Ha, I'm used to it. All right, so then the relative means as I copied that cell, or sorry, that formula from row 4 to say row 8, you can see that now it's adding the 4 columns to the left of it in the same row 8. Okay. Let's go to B13, and we're going to fill to the right. So again, bottom left, bottom right-hand corner, drag it across. And again, if you edit this, you can see that it's the column above it. That's using the F2 button. It then highlights what it's referencing. Okay. Absolute references. So this is where you want to make a formula, no matter where you copy, paste, or move it to, that it keeps the original link. Okay, so absolute references can be done in a few different ways. It can be absolute to both the column and the row that it's related, that the cell references to. It can be just the column, just the row, or obviously, if not at all, would be a relative reference. So let's walk through. Let's go to G3. We're going to do % of total. And in this case, we're going to say we want to know what F4 is. We're going to go equals F4 divided by F13. So we're going to just do it this way for a second, and we're going to enter that. So let's show you what's going to happen, for example. If I copy this down, you'll see all these divs, okay? That's because right now it's saying F4 divided by F13. So if I drag it down, it's going to move everything down 1 row. So 5 out of 14. Well, all of a sudden that's lost where my total is. So what I want to do in my formula is make the denominator, okay, the denominator, F13, fixed. So otherwise, no matter where I drag that down to, do not change it. So the shortest way to do this, if I edit my formula F2 and just hit the F4 button, you'll see it adds dollar symbols in front of the F and in front of the number 13. Okay, if you don't have the F4 button, you would actually go in and type the dollar symbol in front of both the F and the 13. So that means no matter where I copy it, keep it in column F and keep it in row 13. As I said earlier, if I hit F4 again, for example, now it says only keep row 13, but if I move columns, change the column, because there's no dollar sign in front of the F. Do it again, keep column F, but change the row if I move it. Hit it again, I'm back to relative, which does me no good. So I fixed that formula now, and now I can do the autofill again. And you can see, let's go look at this bottom one. You can see it's looking at F13 in every case. All right. All right, we're on to page 1-16. So excuse me. So let's go to J3. We're going to go this year. So we typed this year. And in K3, we're going to go equals F13. So we're going to click on F13. We're going to, so we have previous years and this year. Let's go to J5. We're going to say % increase. Okay, let's go to K5, and we're going to do a little formula here. So we're going to go equals bracket. We're going to take K3. So we clicked on K3, take away K1, close bracket, divided by K1. So we're looking at the % growth year over year. So year 2 minus year 1 divided by year 1. So that was all using the mouse primarily. Okay. So we'll save that formula, but no, it's not the format that I want. So up here under the number sections are the various formats that you can have. Built in out of the box, we've got an accounting number format, you have a percent format, and you have a comma style. There are many other formats. If you click the drop down, there's a bunch in here. We've got dates, times, fractions, etc. Okay, or you can click the launcher, the number format launcher, and get into the weeds here. Go to custom and lots of different options, and we'll cover some of that throughout the course. In this case, I want a percent style, so I'm going to hit the percent button, and I want to increase the decimal place. So over here, you'll see this first button is increase decimal, which we want to do 2 decimals. The second one is decrease decimal. So if you went too far, you can always take it back. Okay. So again, be careful on formulas like this. When you want to do percent increase, the brackets follow the same order of operations you would have learned in math before. So bed math, brackets, exponents, division, multiplication, addition, subtraction. So if you accidentally put no brackets, you'll see it's wrong. It did not grow by 438,000%. Okay, so don't do that. Okay, so make sure you follow your order of operations and have brackets where it's needed. On to page 1-18, we want to insert a function. So let's go to B15. So there's a few things, a few ways to do this. Let's click on the insert function button, which is beside the name box. You'll see the FX button, that's the insert function. And that'll pull up all your various functions. It starts with your most recently used, but you can break it down by category. You can also click in the search box and search for what you're looking for. And in this case, I just want average. Okay, so I'm going to insert the average, and we'll click OK. And then it picks, what do you want to average? So in this case, I want to click the little collapse button, this up arrow with the line under it is collapse this box. That allows me to see more of the screen, and then I can go and use my mouse and highlight what do I want to average. So yes, I want to do B4 to B12. And I'll expand that. That was so that's the minimize, collapse, this is your expand button. Okay, once we have all our different components, say you wanted to include another range from another spot, you can add ranges. Okay. We'll click OK. And now we have our average. Let's go down to our maximum. Another way is if you want to bring in a formula rather than hit an insert function, you go equals and type the letter M. And it starts to pull up the formulas that it thinks you might want. In this case, we want max. Returns the largest set in values. So let's go max. I'll double click on that. And then this is what do you want to find the maximum of. We'll take our mouse, click B4 to B12. And we'll hit enter. Another way is equals M for minimum. We'll find it. We've got minimum down here. Double click. And we'll click B4 to B12. So now we've entered our average, maximum, minimum. What we want to do now is autofill. So let's highlight B15, 16, and 7. So I'm holding the left mouse button. Go to the bottom right-hand corner for your fill button, and we're going to drag that across to only quarter 4. So it's using the same formula for each of the quarters. Okay. And I think one of the last things in this, actually a couple more things. So we've added all our different formulas. I know it's not looking super pretty. We'll add more pretty functions in future modules. But what we want to do is look through different views. So let's go up to A1. We're just going to put our mouse on our active cell on A1. And we want to verify the zoom level and the zoom area status bar is 120. So let's go down here. We'll bring that down to 120. Okay. So you can see how that changes. Your views, as I said earlier, we've got our page break, our page layout, and our normal. You can also go to the view button at the top, or view tab, which pulls up your view ribbon. And you've got your normal view, your page break preview, your page layout, or we'll talk about custom views in a later chapter. If we go to page layout, you can see the ruler. So this is set up for 6 centimeters, okay, in this file. If you wanted to change, where things are at, you can make, click and move things around. Okay, not too worried about it. The one I use the most often, if you have page break preview, this gives you a blue line of where it's going to print and not print if you were to print it, whether it's to a file or to paper. Say I didn't want to print this section on the right, I could just take my mouse to that blue line and drag it into wherever I desire. Okay, or say I wanted a whole bunch. It's based on the page settings. It'll add page breaks where it's needed, but you can also move those around. And if you drag it to the bottom, that'll change your zoom accordingly. Okay. Again, I use page break preview the most often before I print or save the file. We'll go back to normal, or we can hit normal at the top. Okay. Under page, where was I? Page layout. The other option is, say you wanted to see what it looked like without all the messy grid lines in the background. Under show, you can turn off the grid lines. Okay. Sometimes it's nicer just to display it that way. If you don't want the ruler, you can turn off the ruler. Don't want the formula bar. Don't want headings. Okay, different options in here. All right, and lastly, print options. So let's go to A20. We're going to type our name. We know it's you. And now that I've messed up with the page breaks, I'm going to have to go back to page break preview and make sure my name's included. And you can see in this normal view, this slightly darker border indicates the page print area. Let's go to the page layout tab. Page layout, you'll see a bunch of options. So in here, we want to change our orientation. So you can change margins. Do you want normal margins, narrow margins, etc. Under orientation, do you want a portrait? Up and down, do you want landscape? And we want landscape. Landscape. Do we want the grid lines to print or not? So you can turn that on or not. Or do you want to view them? Don't want to view them, want to print them, etc. Your headings are your A to K or your 1 to 20. So if you wanted those printed out on paper or in a PDF, you can do that. I don't do that very often. And then you go File, Print, and it'll give you a little preview. Where do you want to send it? I'll say Microsoft Print to PDF is probably the most common with soft copy files. If you want to change anything from here, you can. You can, do you want to center it? Do you not? Do you want to scale it? Maybe no scaling. Page setup. Do you want to, fit it, center across the sheet? What order do you want? Do you want any rows repeated? Again, we're going to cover some of this later on. Margins, though, if you want to say center to the page, horizontally and vertically, you can do that through the print settings. I will say one of the other functions, say you have a bunch of info and you've added it all, but you want it all to fit on one page. Instead of no scaling, I would say fit sheet on one page. It'll make sure it shrinks to a point that everything is on one page. And that's module 1, kind of your introduction. Okay, that's your introduction to this chapter. And I wish you luck.